I'm Jan from the upcoming. Nice to meet you. Firstly, I wanted to ask because your film is inspired by the true events, and what's the story behind it? Tell me more.
So the story is inspired by the true events that happened to a friend of mine. His name is Sana, and he's a herdsman and horseman in Inner Mongolian. So around 2 years ago, I saw that he had this professional change from a horseman to a horseback performer who performs at a local horse show. So at the time I went to visit him at the horse show. So I saw him backstage and on the stage. On the stage every night they were like performing this grandiose classical Mongolian hero's journey kind of show. And backstage, he and the actors were like just chatting about their life during the time that they were doing the show season. My friend, he was having some financial difficulties and he was like trying very hard to sell his flock of sheep. In reality, life was hard, and but still, nevertheless, every night they put on the armors and they become this kind of hero-ish figure. So that kind of visual contrast initially really struck me and made me want to explore like what's gonna happen if your performed role and your actual life is like so split apart, and to a point that will you feel comfortable with it. Then I started to write a story revolving around my friend's experience, and I eventually cast him to Senna himself to play the role.
And was it challenging for you to play with both fiction and reality?
Yeah, I think it's a very surreal experience. Sometimes while I was writing the story, I can see that reality and fiction sometimes intertwines, and sometimes I start writing something and then it becomes reality, and it's very strange sometimes, but I always have the hope that by writing a story that's so close to reality, but yet it's not reality, I feel that it kind of helped me and help us, everyone in the film, to reimagine our current situation and to reevaluate our choices.
So your story and the film story kind of explores those traditional Mongolian masculinity and all those kind of traditions related to that. And I'm curious, like, can you tell us more about it?
So the performers at the horse show, they are mainly male performers, and during the show, they kind of dress up as in traditional Mongolian costumes, and they do like all those fancy horse riding tricks you can imagine. For me, it's almost like fetishizing masculinity and also their ethnic identity, but clearly that is something that's a very good selling point for the tourism industry, and it is something that obviously, if you are a tourist, will want to see. But at the same time, it's so different from people's real life. But at the same time, it is a way of living a sustainable income for the performers there. So I just felt that there's like so many layers to this, and for me, it's also like a situation where like masculinity is being gazed upon, and under all those lenses like traditions and all the tourism, all the others.
Because you're also interested in the national identity, and I'm like curious how important is it for you as an author and the director in your own work?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I don't cling to certain fixed identities really, because I've been a student in the US and in Italy as well as in the Czech Republic, and I feel that I understand the experience being a majority in a country as well as being a minority in a country. I just feel that as a filmmaker, I can be something in between, and while being the vessel of different things.
And how did you collect the funds for your first feature film? What's the story behind it?
So for this film, we relied on a lot of international fundings. For example, Asian Cinema Fund and also Asian Project Market. At the time, we basically went to like almost all the project market that we can go to. So there's like some other opportunities for us to get fundings that way. So besides project markets, we also relied on private investors who might like this kind of film. We didn't have like that many private investors, but so private investors plus the international fundings eventually made up the plate of the film. And yeah, it's a very small film, so it's not like that difficult.
And in terms of discussing the masculinity in the cinema in your films, is it like a standalone project for you, or would you like to continue this theme and try to talk about it in your future films?
To be honest, I usually don't like design my career path like that way. For me, I'm quite an intuitive writer and filmmaker. I usually start writing only when I get struck by an idea and I know that it's good. So sometimes I can write really fast, but it's almost impossible for me to predict what the next thing will be or whether there's like a certain thread that I'm going to follow.
Do you see yourself more as a writer, or as a director, or as a combination of both?
I think I'm definitely a combination of both. I have been more like on the writer side, and as a director, I kind of feel that there's some negative effects when you are too much of a writer, because when you're making your first film, you realize that something that's so easy to write, you can write it in one sentence, but if you want to put it on screen and to show instead of tell, it's gonna take a lot more than that. And something that you can just show with one image, you might need like a paragraph to describe it. So some skills are not translatable.
And did you feel the pressure that this is your first feature film? That were you anxious, or you tried to have a more easygoing approach? Like, what was your approach towards this film?
Well, my approach to this film is like, well, it's like raising a child in a way. I can try my best to give like all the available resources that I can think of and I can have. The journey of this film when it is released, it basically has its own fate. So, and that is like out of my control after that. So it's like setting a child free after a certain age. The film itself is going to have its independent life that's outside of me very soon.
So, what is next for you after this film?
I have some ideas for the next ones, but I'm not gonna share yet. I want to develop those stories in like script writing labs, such as Torino Film Lab and maybe the Cannes residency and stuff like that. Just really take my time developing the next thing. No need to be so rushed, like this one. Yeah.
Thank you so much for today.
Thank you.